Hey, everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod Barbecue Podcast. On this episode, we got a crew show. It's me and Mr. Ryan Douthit of Driving Sports TV. And so here's the deal. So I don't know if you guys have been watching the Hemmings YouTube channel, which you definitely should be doing, because last week we launched a brand new show called Tested. And it's actually called Tested Muscle. And what that show is think of it as automotive reviews, NOS style. Right? Where we take a bone stock muscle car from the 1960s and the 70s and the 80s, and we give it a full-blown road test and review, again, in stock form, not modified. So, Ryan and I had filmed this show, I don't know, how many months ago?
2-3 months ago. I don't know. It's all vague.
Right?
It's all.
Yeah, I know. It just kind of runs into each other. So the first episode we did, if you haven't had a chance to see it, was a 1963 Studebaker Avanti R2. It's a supercharged car, and it was a kick-ass automobile. Avanti is one of those cars that you never really know that you like it until you have a chance to drive it, which I don't think too many people have, but I did, and I thought it was great. Just a cool car.
When I saw it, I was not so sure it was going to fit the whole tested muscle aspect of the show, but I was like, oh, I was corrected.
Supercharged V8 with a Dana 44 in the rear. I mean, come on. But that brings us to our new episode, which actually goes up today. So you have to if you're listening to this, head over to the Hemmings YouTube channel and you will see it. And what is that car? It is a 1978 Pontiac Trans Am WS6 W72 Performance Pack car with a 404 speed in it. And because it's a Trans Am, the topic of this podcast is going to be our favorite cars from our favorite car movies. Since Trans Am, Smokey and the Bandit. I mean, plus the car has played the hero. It's played the villain. It's one of the most iconic automobiles in the history of the world. So we're going to talk about that and a whole bunch of other cars right now. So, all right. You want to kick this off, Ryan, with some of your favorites, or you want me to?
I do. So as soon as you said it was going to be a favorite vehicle, movie vehicle show, my mind immediately went to Jan Michael Vincent in the movie Damnation Alley from 1977. Dude, I was a little child, too young to really remember much. The world was kind of vague and weird, but I remember the Landmaster from that movie.
That is so. For those who have never seen Damnation Alley, see, Ryan and I are not young anymore, right? We're like, we're born in the 70s. We're born in the 70s. So, like, you have to understand that where we're coming from regarding our movies and our car culture, so much of it was shaped in the 1970s. And that means movies from the 1960s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, right? So we cut a huge swath of automotive goodness when it comes to like what our favorite cars is. But that is a very obscure title with a very amazing vehicle that if you haven't seen Damnation Alley, you really need to go check it out.
So the loose premise, as I remember it, for those who didn't see the film, is it's a post-apocalyptic film, like most things were back in the late 70s. And like all of, if I'm not mistaken, now this is my fuzzy recollection, like they thought they were the last people in the world, but they thought there might be an enclave of humanity in the Colorado mountains. So they get in this military vehicle, which is designed for this for some reason. I guess they knew it was coming. They drive from Los Angeles to Colorado. That's the movie. And I did pull up the Wikipedia on this Landmaster. And it's, of course, complete. So the vehicle weighed 23,000 pounds. It's 30 feet long, 35 feet long. It has 2 top-mounted rocket launchers, Ford side-mounted auto cannons, and 2 front-mounted retractable bazookas, plus 2 front-mounted flamethrowers. It's a 391 cubic inch, 6.4 liter with a 5-speed Allison and a 12-wheel TriStar powertrain, because it has the 3 wheels stacked. This was the moment for me as a child. Okay, so the whole time they're driving on dirt, and of course you see these stacked wheels, and they look cool. They're kind of in a
triangle.
a triangular format, but the two wheels are on the bottom the whole time. The top wheel spins, but it never does anything. You're like, okay, it just looks cool. But then a dam breaks later in the movie. The whole thing is underwater. It floats to the top, and all the triangles start working like they're water wheels, and the thing turns into a boat basically, and it glides to safety.
Welcome to the 70s, folks.
The 70s. I mean, dude, how much cocaine was consumed?
All of it.
When they were coming up for this film.
All of it.
And of course, it's starring Jan Michael Vincent. So, it's going to be a great film.
Yeah. Well, all right. So if you're going to go, you went post-apocalyptic. I'm going to stay right in that vein. And I'm going to go, I'm obviously going straight to the Road Warrior and Mad Max.
Oh, of course. Well, right? Which one?
Okay, so I'm going with Mad Max, which was the first one. I think a lot of people like Road Warrior, but when it comes to the vehicle itself, it is the Mad Max Interceptor. It is the 1973 Ford Falcon XB. They call it the last of the Interceptors. It was powered by a 351 V8 with that crazy wind blower sticking out of the hood. Which was interesting. The blower in the movie was operated by a switch on the handle, which, if most people know, that's not how blowers work. Okay, so
don't worry about it.
But for the movie, it was really cool, and it was jacked up with zoomies on the side, and the blower sticking out. One of the most badass movie cars in the world. I love it. It shaped me as a kid. One of the reasons that I fell in love with muscle cars as a little kid, and it's. I have yet to drive one, but if anybody out there has one, let me know. I will make a pilgrimage to where you are because I'm dying to drive one. All right, your turn. Give me another one.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I mean, Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Bob's Charger and Fast and the Furious. That's a look. It was much later in my career. So, I was already in the automotive world by the time that I saw that one. But I thought it was really great to bring like that kind of classic muscle back to the screen, because I didn't feel like I was really seeing that much in mainstream films. You always go back to like the films of the 70s and maybe early 80s, definitely films of the 60s where you saw that, things like that, but never in like the 90s and early, I guess that was early aughts. But
early 2000 was what was
it was early
Fast and Furious
it was
2001,
something like that. Yeah, that's it.
Well, it's interesting because like when you talk about that, there are certain cars that have been used over and over again in movies, and they play the heroes and the villains, right? So the Dodge Charger is one of them. One. So the Dodge Charger is one of them, right? You saw it in Bullet, you saw it in Fast and Furious, you saw it in the movie Cannonball, you saw it in the Dukes of Hazzard. It is the quintessential muscle car that's in everything. The Pontiac Trans Am, Smokey and the Bandit, the Driver, Fast and Furious. There was one in there. There are certain cars that are always in these great automotive movies because they just have that personality.
And speaking of cars that are just in basically so many movies, Lamborghini Countach.
Dude, Cannonball Run.
Not just Cannonball Run, but also Miami Vice a little bit later.
Well, Miami Vice, yeah, but Crockett and Tubbs drove the Testarossa, but yes, they did.
Have a Countach at some point? Because they went through a number of different vehicles.
His first Ferrari was a replica of the 365 GTB Ferrari Daytona convertible.
You paid more attention to Miami Vice than
I did. Dude, and that was built on a Corvette chassis, and it looked pretty damn good. Yeah. Then that blew up at the end of season, I think, 2. Don't ask me why I know this stupidity, but I do.
I do remember something blowing up in slow motion.
The Daytona was blown up, and it was replaced with an ex-drug dealer's car in the form of a white single-mirror Ferrari Testarossa. And that's how I fell in love with that. However, there is an amazing chase in one episode between a Countach and I believe the Daytona, not the Testarossa in the Daytona.
Okay.
So
that might be where I'm getting the Countach from. Yeah. It wasn't his, but I saw it in the show at some point.
It was one of those shows.
I was so young at that point. We're basically the same age. But that was the type of show where I'd have to like sneak in to watch it. Like I like watch it. Like my parents would be sitting in the front of the room, and I'd be like peering over the back of the the sofa trying to catch an eyeful of it. So
Well, see, like
I didn't always follow the
Countach,
storyline.
nah, I mean, who did? I mean, for me, it was obviously the cars, and that is like Cannonball Run, right? The Cannonball Run as a movie is quite terrible, and yet the greatest movie. When I was a kid, when I first started getting into cars and learning, I mean, I wanted to be Burt Reynolds when I was a kid, and seeing, even though he didn't drive the Countach, it was driven by these two very attractive women that got out of every ticket because they had boobs, and they had a Countach. The first 3 minutes of the film is just this black Countach running from the cops, and it's just all V12 screaming goodness.
And to think about, like, they did a lot of aerial shots, if I'm not mistaken, with that
whole thing.
So they did planes, they did, I mean, just like the way those productions worked back then, it was so complicated to do all that stuff because you needed the planes, the helicopters, the close the roads off, which still close roads off. But these days they basically just put it into a digital shaker and they're like, oh look, Countach
spit it out.
Chase. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like when Dom injects nitrous in Fast and the Furious, and you're flying through the tubes and he shifts 5 times, and but you're like, okay, reality, whatever.
But that's the beauty of some of these older movies from the 70s and 80s, right? When you talk about not only the cars, but you talk about the actual chase scenes, these were all real speed, real time.
Yeah.
Like this was like some of the greatest chase
unless
scenes
you're watching Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo.
That's correct. That was not
cool. Fun fact about Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo: when he's actually racing in Monte Carlo, that's actually Mazda Race. Oh, and it's not called Mazda Race anymore, but that's Laguna Seca.
Oh, is it really?
Seca. Yeah. So but it was Laguna Seca before it had FIA curbing. So it was basically just like strips of pavement, and you're like, that's turn 11, that's turn 4. It's really good.
I didn't know that.
Again, and it's like, yeah, Monte Carlo.
Okay, I will have to do that. All right, now I'm going to bring up some of my favorite car chases.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, car chases. Now, there's a couple. One is the movie Ronin.
Oh, so good.
Right?
I bought the DVD back when you bought DVDs for that chasing.
Dude, a lot of people don't realize the choreography in that car chase. You had a Mercedes-Benz, a 6.9, right? You had an Audi S8. You had Citroens. You had some of the coolest cars and just a kick-ass chase in that movie. If you haven't seen Ronin with Robert De Niro, you have to go and you have to watch it. The car chase will just...
It's such a great film in general, and the chase scene just is the cherry on top.
It is, absolutely. Other great car chase movies. You're talking about, obviously, I'll mention Bullet, but everybody's seen that, so who cares? But go look at another one called The 7-Ups. The 7-Ups is a movie with Roy Scheider. And Roy Scheider... Oh, dude, he drives a Pontiac Ventura, and the chase scene is between him and a gentleman by the name of Bill Hickman. And Bill Hickman was the driver of the Charger in the movie Bullet. He was the stunt driver, and he just happened to play the bad guys in both movies. That's just a kick-ass one. The other one, To Live and Die in L.A. Great car chase, amazing. But there, you know what it is there? And Smokey the Bandit was just a 2-hour-long car chase. I mean, that's what that was.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I actually rewatched Smokey and the Bandit just a couple months ago, and it really holds up.
Dude, it's fun.
I'm kind of surprised. A lot of the stuff in the 70s, you're kind of like a little awkward. And there are a few little things in it, but overall, you're like, this actually isn't bad.
So let me ask you, if you have what movie with a car chase or a car, give me an example of a movie that you were like, I didn't realize this was a car movie, or this was like going to have this good of a chase in it, or this.
Oh man,
there have been a couple where I was watching it and I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic.
Well, okay. So I was on a flight to Italy in 2000, and I put on the thing, they had a movie by Luc Besson called Taxi. And I think it was called Taxi. But I did not realize what I was watching. I'm like, oh, Luc Besson, Taxi, sure, I'll just watch whatever. The whole movie's a car chase.
Yes.
And one of the best car chase movies I had ever seen. Now, granted, I was watching...
reference.
Oh, it's so good. The sad thing is that it was remade like a decade later with Queen Latifah.
Oh
and
God, it was so bad.
Somebody and oh, who's that late night TV guy? Anyway,
Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. Oh, I never even watched it because you saw that and you're like, no.
So, fun fact, that was filmed, First Precinct. I used to work down on Varick Street in Lower Manhattan, and I used to walk by two places of interest. One was the Ghostbusters Firehouse. That was 2 blocks away from where I used to work. I saw it every day when I got off the train and walked down by Canal Street. The other was the police station where that was filmed. When they were actually filming that movie, I walked down, and as I was walking down,
the Queen Latifah version,
the Queen Latifah,
because the other one takes place in France.
Yes, the Queen Latifah. I was walking down, and they had all the streets shut off. This is downtown Tribeca, and as I'm walking by, Queen Latifah's there. Now, I'm a big Queen Latifah fan. I know it's hard to believe, but I walked by, and I screamed out. I was like, "Queen Latifah, I love you!" And she screamed back. She was like, "I love you too!" And it was such a great. And this was 7:00 in the morning. I was on my way to the office. Was one of the highlights. So I will say the movie sucks.
You were pumped.
Queen Latifah's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So cool. That's so cool.
It was a good moment.
I was just looking up. The movie Taxi came out in 1998. So it must have been fairly fresh when I went and saw it. But it was so popular, it spawned 4 sequels. The French version did. So I've only seen the first one, and it was amazing. Peugeot 406 is the star of the film.
Okay.
You know, all those big Peugeot movie chase sequences.
Well, all in France. What else they got over there?
That's fair. I mean, Citroën, but
right. I'm going to throw out an obscure one. And this is a movie with Charlie Sheen and an actor by the name of D.B. Sweeney, and it's called No Man's Land.
Oh, wow. You're getting obscure. Never even heard of that one. Yeah,
this is a good one. This was made in the 80s, and there is an unbelievable chase scene between a Porsche 930 Turbo and an IROC Camaro.
That's weird.
It's
an 87. It's done in 87, and the poster looks like every other film released in the 80s. It's like generic poster. I would not even thought of twice of this thing.
That is correct. Now, go on YouTube and just Google or just YouTube No Man's Land Porsche chasing. It's a real 930 Turbo, and they beat the crap out of it. And it's that. I think there's a Lincoln involved in the chase, because in the 80s there was always some Lincoln involved in the chase.
Of course, always.
But that's a killer chase scene with 2 amazing cars.
I mean, you can't talk movie chase scenes without talking about the Italian Job.
Oh no, yeah.
But you know
are you talking the newer Italian Job or the newer one?
Well, the original. But the fun fact about the new one is that those were the world's first electric minis. Because they weren't given permission to drive gas-powered minis in the tunnel scene. And so they actually had to build the world's first electric minis to be able to run those. So they were all electric cars that they had dubbed gas motor sounds over in the film.
Really? I had no idea about that.
Fun facts with Ryan. Yeah. Big movie fan, but I can't believe you're like pulling out like 2 or 3 films I've never even heard of. And I watch a lot of movies.
Oh, dude. There were some, you know what it is? Whenever a film came out back then, that caught my attention with the cars in it. Like there was one with another Charlie Sheen movie called The Wraith, which was just an awful movie, right? And they had this stupid, spaceship looking thing that Charlie Sheen was in, but there was a really cool another Trans Am movie with a blower on it, right? And a Corvette, and it's just. I think that's why I got so entrenched in kind of the muscle car scene, because that's just what I grew up with, and watching these things that seemingly never died, right? Regardless of what you put them through, they just kept running. And Vanishing Point was another one.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Like Barry Newman, all he did was take he started in like Chicago, and he had to get to Los Angeles. And so he took all of the speed that he could find. And when I say speed, I'm talking both literally and figuratively. All the speed that he could find, stuffed it in his face, and then put his foot down on a 440 Challenger with a pistol grip and hammered across the fucking desert. And it was great. So much so that we did a road trip. This was got to be 5 or 6 years ago, to Michigan. And one of the places we stopped was the hotel that the DJ, I believe it was Cleavon Little, played the DJ in Vanishing Point, and the hotel was in Goldfield, Nevada, which is this little, like, there's nothing there, but the hotel is still there. And we actually went there and checked it out. It was one of those kind of bucket list things. Yeah, I know. DJ's name was Super Soul. This is the obscure garbage that dances in my head.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the TV show Viper when it was out for one season?
For what? Yeah, I did. Of course I did.
Yeah, it was
obviously.
So bad.
It was terrible. But in TV shows, what about Hardcastle and McCormick?
Oh, well, that was a good one. Yeah. God, what was it? Well, I mean, so many TV shows, because obviously Tom Selleck with
Magnum PI.
You can't not talk about
Simon and Simon.
But there was that whole Simon and Simon. There was that whole period of this the Cannell. Is it Cannell?
Stephen J. Cannell. Yeah.
Cannell. Yeah. All of his shows seem to have like a car chase sequence of some sort or something going on in that thing. In fact, did you ever see what was that one? It was more about boats than it was about cars, but it was what was that? It had a robot, a nerd, Riptide. Yeah,
Riptide.
Yeah, they had a Mercedes. Didn't they have like a Mercedes convertible? I think one of the guys was driving.
Yes, I believe that they did. Yeah, and he flew that big helicopter.
The helicopter, the big pink helicopter with the
face on
the front. Because of course he did. Everything needed some kind of iconic vehicle. Like after the success of the A-Team, then it's like, well, everybody needs an iconic vehicle in your show.
How did we not even mention the A-Team?
Because we didn't have enough time. We would eventually get there one way or the other.
Like the A-Team, which is the absolute worst getaway apocalypse vehicle in the form.
Let's get away from things. We'll go get in that GMC van.
Let's get the van. That'll do it. If Mr. T's driving it, the van is indestructible. So we're gonna take the van and we're gonna put machine guns everywhere, and we're gonna do that.
It'll be great.
Oh my God! I'll tell you. This is go.
I have to think that we were lucky because we grew up during a period where the people didn't really care and they just threw all sorts of garbage at the screen. But the nice thing is that they didn't have the budget. So like one of the greatest chase scenes that you don't expect in a film is Blues Brothers.
My God. That is
a film that could not be made today simply because of all the crashes, all the permits they'd have to get. They'd have to shut down all of Chicago. Which, literally, of course, back then, like nobody was in Chicago, but I don't think they even pulled permits. If I'm not mistaken, I think in the director's commentary, they were like, "Oh yeah, we just went down there and crashed like 20 of these cop cars." I think it's the most cop cars ever crashed in a film.
Was. You are correct. That it's interesting. But what's crazy is that was filmed again, another film in the 70s and the early 80s that was filmed at speed, right? Yeah. So when you see them, there's one scene in particular where they're in Chicago and they're ripping under the L train, right? Mm-hmm. And you see a guy, this is totally standard, but you see a guy in like a wheelchair and he's boogieing along trying to cross the street and they are hammering down upon them. And I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me on it, but you'll see a scene where Dan Aykroyd is driving and they literally just missed this guy and he literally looks at Belushi like, whew. That I don't think was scripted. I think and again, if anybody knows, do me a favor and pop in the comments and let me know. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was like an oh shit moment. I'm pretty sure about that. But yeah, dude, all of these movies and all of these cars, I mean, you go on and on. You could talk about Days of Thunder, Christine, The Driver. I mean, they were just
those ones are a little obvious though. It's like Christine, it's a movie about a car. So.
Well, yeah, that's true. But just so many that are they stand out, and there was no CGI.
No, there
was no CGI.
They had to make it look exciting without faking it. And that's really impressive. Like the skills of the directors and the stunt people in that era. So just to draw a parallel here. So if you see the movie Baby Driver, a lot of those stunts were real. They really did like back the Subaru around and flip it around and do the thing. That's a real car doing that. But so they do the whole PR tour where they're like, oh yeah, it was real. It was an actual car. They don't tell you that all the obstacles were inserted in digital post. So
were they seriously?
Yeah. So the obstacle. So they're basically doing all this down the back of a completely empty alley. And then they put in all these obstacles. So it looks like, wow, they barely missed everything. So they're true. They're being accurate. Yes, it was not digital effects, the driving, just everything else was.
Okay. All right. So on that, I'm going to throw this. Have you ever seen the original Gone in 60 Seconds? Not the Nicolas Cage one. Okay,
I
the
know.
original.
No, and the Nicolas Cage one I think was not great, but
No. The original one was done by this guy. His name was H.B. Halicki, and he was this stunt driver slash director in the 70s. And when he did this, I think it was a 1970 Mach 1. The cool part about it is I think they only had 1 or 2 of them. So as the movie progresses and the Mustang gets jacked up and jacked up and jacked up from crashing, you can see this thing deteriorate through every single scene. And it's great because it's one of the few films where the car is actually, you can see it. Like you could see like, oh yeah, he got that dent in 2 scenes before. He did this and that, And I don't know. That's
great. That's when the car really becomes a character that adds value to
right.
the film. It's not just a set piece. The pulling up Gone in 60 Seconds. I know it's a great film because I'm looking at it. It's the same director, writer, and star.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
H.B. Halicki, all of it.
All of it.
Boy,
yeah,
the trailer. Anybody who's watching this after you're done watching this podcast, go to YouTube and look up the trailer for Gone in 60 Seconds. I think I've seen like 50 car crashes in the first 10 seconds. It's just boom, 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 boom. It's great. Mm-hmm. Love it.
That's all it is.
There's some good shots actually in that. They have like cameras under cars. They have cameras rigged to the sides of wheels. Really nice. I can see why they remade it. But no, I haven't seen the original. I should. I knew the new one was a remake. I just never bothered to get around to watch the old one.
When you get so here's the thing. So there are, for those of you out there who are listening that haven't seen a lot of these movies, I am going to rattle off a list that you all should see. I made a list because why wouldn't I make a list? Ready? And I'm going to start.
Of course.
I'm going to start. All right. And I'm leaving some out, but these are just some of my favorites. Cannonball Run, Vanishing Point, Stroker Race, Damnation Alley, The Last Race, Smokey and the Bandit, Bullet, Mad Max, Road Warrior, Fury Road, Fast and the Furious, all of them. They're just stupid fun. The 7-Ups, To Live and Die in LA, American Graffiti, Heartbreaker, which is a lowrider movie, Vannon, which is so terrifyingly amazing, terrible, and shows a segment of the United States population that is just, you go, huh? And then you just leave it at that. 2 Lane Blacktop, Ronin, Ford versus Ferrari, Days of Thunder, Le Mans with Steve McQueen, Christine, The Driver, No Man's Land. That's a lot of movies. Ryan, you just went dead again. I can't hear you. Every now and again, folks, what happens is all of a sudden Ryan's stuff stops working. And then right now he's just scrambling around to try to fix it, which he'll do in a few minutes. But listen, these movies, if you like car culture at all, go back and watch them. Go back over the list that I just gave you. Rewind the podcast. I've just given you a ton of hours of golden, iconic movie footage. They are fun. They're exciting. Yes, they're campy. Yes, they were made in the 70s and 80s, but what they don't have is CGI. Don't watch them for the stories. Watch them for the cars.
This is incredible.
They're incredible. So,
and you forgot on your list there, Mike. You forgot Ford versus Ferrari. That's a modern one that's quite good.
No, I said it.
Did you?
I said it right after Ronin.
Okay. Ford versus Ferrari. Right. That was actually a movie that I didn't want to watch immediately because there was so much hype around it, and I'm just like, it's not going to be that great probably. And it blew me away. It was so good.
Pretty good.
Now factual about Shelby and all that. But it's a good movie.
Good movie. Good movie.
With really good action sequences.
Yes, it does. So, folks, there you go. You just got 40 minutes on movie cars, on some of the best automotive movies around. We even threw in a couple of TV shows for you to go back and watch. So that's it. That's all we got. This was movie cars.
Post your favorites on the bottom down below.
Yeah.
Tell us what you like. Did we miss one? Let us know.
I'm sure we did.
We'll watch it.
100%. Yeah, let us know what y'all like, and then, I don't know, we'll talk about it next time. So, guys, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Ryan, always a pleasure, my friend. That's it. We'll see y'all later. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod Barbecue podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.